Hello and welcome to Catamount Community Connection, our public affairs program that we air each week on Sundays here at Catamount Radio. I'm Brian Collamore, your host, and the show is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair in Rutland since 1846, and we're already looking forward to the 179th fair. The dates are August 12th through the 16th, 2025, the Vermont State Fair here in Rutland. Happy to have them aboard as the sponsor of Catamount Community Connection. And each week we talk with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and yes, political arenas. And we are pleased today to welcome back into the show the president of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, or sometimes called City Council. I'm not sure what the distinction is. Burlington seems to enjoy the phrase City Council, but it's the Board of Aldermen here in Rutland. At any rate, the president of that board is Dave Allaire, and he is with us today. And David, welcome back. A pleasure to have you in today.
Well, thank you, Brian. I always enjoy coming down and speaking with you and your listeners and having a good conversation about what's going on here in the city and throughout the state.
Yeah, so we're in early June now, and I know we had the mayor on last week, Mike Dunches. We talked a little bit about some of the events that will be happening in downtown Rutland. The Whoopie Pie Festival, that's actually not till September this year, and they're not going to try to break a record, as I understand. The Dream Makers are not in business anymore, so that was the group that baked or made the pie, but there's still going to be a big party, and upwards of 5,000-6,000 people come downtown for that each year. But there's other things that are going on. First night out, is that the right phrase for that event? That's coming up again. I think it's going to be right here near the radio station. It started off at Georgetti Park, but it's been moved to Meadow Street Park, and it's a fine event. I went the last couple of years, and great crowds, good food, and people just having a good old time. So what are some of the other events? The other thing I mentioned to the mayor, we're going to have the Main Street Park done by then, we hope. I went by on my way in here to the radio station, and they still have the fence up around what is the old bandstand, I guess you call it. But it's quite a bit differently configured than it used to be. There used to be sides on it, and it's kind of like wide open now, but it looks like it's pretty much ready to go. Yeah,
I do believe it is very close to completion. I think the first band concert this year is in the third week of June. We're speaking here right at the end of May, so we still got a little bit of time to have it finished. But the idea was to make it more amenable to the bands that are playing there and the people that are listening to it. Take down those walls, have the bands up there, make it make it sound better. Obviously, the structure needed work, and money only went so far. We wanted to do some other things down there, but I think it's really going to look nice when it's finished, and I think people are going to be very pleased.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he mentioned the roof was either it was done or it needs to be done still. But part of the other, that sort of ring, the wall that was around it was obviously not in great shape. So they took that down. They poured some new concrete, and it looks really good. And those are, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesdays and Sunday nights, I think.
So Sunday nights for the band concerts. Yep. And it is Wednesday night. That's correct. For rock concert, music concert, whatever it is. Try to run it on a night where the other communities are not. So, I mean, it's, Fairhaven has one. I think Pittsford has something during the week, too. So, if you're so inclined, you could probably get out and enjoy music almost every night during the summer, weather permitting.
That's true. Yeah, Castleton used to have one. I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but you're right. I know Fairhaven does. So, yeah, lots to do. We finally, at least as we're recording this, have the weather on our side. It's I don't ever remember a spring as sort of dreary and wet and really not very comfortable as this past one was, but it looks like we turned the corner.
Yeah, this seems to be the first day where we really had any substantial sun, and actually got out and mowed the lawn today. That felt pretty good. And, early in the season, we all enjoy mowing our lawn, a little different when it comes to September, and it gets to be kind of a chore.
Yeah.
But you were talking a little bit about some of the events that were coming up, and one of them being actually National Night Out is the correct phrase that the police use.
Yep.
In the beginning of August. And that is something that's held in several communities. Here locally, I think we have one, good-sized one, where the attendance has really been up in the last few years. And Fairhaven, I think, holds one pretty much the same night. And, it's an opportunity for the police to interact with the community. They're just regular people like the rest of us. You get to speak with them, find out what their issues are, and just, have a good time, especially for the kids. A lot of nonprofits show up. They have games for those folks, and a lot of information for different people. And Meadow Street seems to be a really great venue for that. Nice and wide open, and Rec Department does a terrific job keeping it up to date.
Yeah, there's food there. I remember hot dogs and hamburgers, and I've been going down for the last couple of years. I guess in a way we just sort of outgrew Giorgetti. It was on the lawn right in front of the what is the winter hockey rink, but it wasn't as spacious as Meadow Street is. So yeah, I know the kids enjoy it. I praise one of our officers probably a little more than I should, Emilio Rosario, who just has a great personality. And I walked around with him, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and it's amazing how many kids come up to him and want to talk to him. And some of them, he even has told me that, they've had some challenges in their lives in the past, and he had to interact with them in another way. Mm-hmm. But he's really popular and seems to really have the perfect attitude for being in law enforcement. So hopefully he'll be there, and everybody will be able to enjoy that in August at Meadow Street. We spoke a lot about the TIF district in the past, 3 or 4 shows. Devin Neary was with us from the Planning Commission. We had the mayor talk about it last week. Yep. The legislature, by the time you hear this, hopefully will have adjourned for, a few weeks. There is a veto session back in June, so we'll have to arrive back if there's, and I know there's going to be at least 2 vetoes. So we will be going back. But for the moment, at least, things probably were a little more quiet in Montpelier than they have been since January. But one of the bills that did get passed had to do with the TIF district, and it seems as though this has become a really good economic tool for a lot of communities. There are what are called, I call them mini TIFs, but they're project-based TIFs, which are much smaller than the one that will be employed in downtown Rutland, and even larger, the one that is up at Killington. So I know we've made some pretty good progress on the one that will be going downtown, right?
We have, and I'm very pleased about how that's moved forward. That all kind of got it started in my last year as the mayor of the city, and really took off. The Board of Aldermen stepped up along with the other organizations that have been involved in the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Development Corporation, just everybody coming to the business community, all coming together along with our local legislators, and all moving in the same direction. Seems to be widespread support for it. Obviously, the first big project that's on the docket is the Downtown Hotel. We've passed some milestones just recently when it comes to that. The Board of Aldermen approved a development agreement with the developers, and that's what the state was looking for. And so that's going to move us, hopefully fairly quickly ahead to get the place cleaned up. There's some issues there, but once that's done, we can get shovels in the ground and start actually building. And hopefully for opening, what I'm hearing is in 2027. So, we're in 25 now, a couple of years, because it's going to go by fast.
Yeah, it sounds like a long way away, but it really isn't.
It isn't.
One of the first things that has to be done, and this is on the dime of the Belden Corporation, it's not taxpayer money. the Beldens are paying for this, is the remediation of the contaminated soil over which we've been parking for 50 years. And people have been walking around on it, and we've had events down there, but it still needs to get cleaned up. And so I'm not sure how far down whatever the chemical was or the element was that seeped into the ground, but they'll have to dig at some point. And again, I don't know how many feet down they have to go. They take all that contaminated soil and then transport it, I think, to Michigan, somewhere in the Midwest. And when we began, so when you were mayor, Dave, the cost was probably about $500,000, something like that. It's now $5 million to complete this project. But anyway, they'll put it, I don't know if it's on trucks or how they're going to transport it, over to the west of Michigan, and they somehow treat it, and then I guess the dirt's okay again. I don't know what they do with the new dirt, but anyway, that's the first piece, and then they'll literally pour a concrete slab over that, over the hole that they've dug out, and then the hotel can start going up. And as I understand it, there will be some interruption on, well, I guess Center Street first, and then Wales Street, in terms of putting new power and water and sewer, I guess, in those areas. So, people are going to have to be patient. The parking that they've enjoyed, at least on Center Street for a while, and sometimes on Wales Street, probably for a while, it'll be interrupted, right?
Yeah, I think actually there's going to be several spaces that are going to disappear permanently. They're going to move some power poles here very shortly. I think even this upcoming week is they're going to start working on that very, very quickly. Green Mountain Power wants to get ahead of the game. So, but all told, maybe a half dozen. So there shouldn't be too much of an interruption. Again, patience will be the key. We're trying to get communicate to the public as much as we possibly can, especially the downtown business owners, so they are aware of what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. But from what I understand, there seems to be widespread agreement that in the long run, this is going to be good for everybody. It's going to draw more people downtown, certainly with all the improvements that are going on across the street at the Paramount Theater. They're spending millions over there to renovate and upgrade their facility to make it more user-friendly. So you combine those two things, toward their completion more or less at the same time. Maybe the Paramount will even be totally done before that. I think it's going to, be a game changer for downtown. I really do.
And I think the county, we're going to have underground parking in this hotel. It's a 7-story hotel, and there will be, I can't remember, I want to say 99 rooms, but I could be off by a few, that will be available to use as a hotel. So you come in for the weekend, you stay a couple nights, and you leave again. And then one floor, I think, will be permanent housing for people, probably professional types. So people that might work for the Rutland Regional Medical Center or Casella or some of the larger corporations around will have a place where right in downtown they can stay, and that'll be their apartment while they're here. And again, underground parking, I think for the folks that are in the hotel, they'll probably be using the parking deck for the most part. Mm-hmm. And there'll be, last but not least, a bar and a restaurant on the top floor. And that will be quite a view, because I don't think there is a 7-story building downtown. I think the service building is probably higher than that, but I don't know by how much.
Yeah, and that's quite a distance away. So, yeah, you're right. I think up there, once you get up to the top there, if they, and I'm sure they will, enclose it with glass so you can have the view. You'll be able to see, the beautiful steeples that are right up the street that are historic, and that whole area is an historic district. So. Yeah, I think it's really going to be cool, and I think that'll even attract more people downtown. More dining. People love to go out to eat. Those restaurants downtown all seem to do quite well, and I know my wife and I are down there quite a bit. So.
Yeah, and of course across the street, as you mentioned, the Paramount, and there have been occasions I've talked with Eric at the theater where they could have had maybe a little bit bigger act come in, but they literally had no place for them to stay. So that hotel will serve as a place where, maybe bigger name acts will come in and perform, maybe for a couple of nights and be able to stay over. And then you've got all the people from down country, whether it's New York City or Connecticut, that maybe, have held off driving up here for skiing. Now they can literally take the train and jump off the train and walk to the hotel and stay, and then, get a Uber or something and go up and use the Killington Mountain and Pico. So, yeah, I think you're right. It is a big, big transformation, and it's only taken us 50 years. So,
well, it wasn't like it was yesterday that the Berwick burned, but I'll remind your listeners that I was there that night. My wife and I both were. We didn't know each other at the time. She was at the theater across the street, the Paramount, watching a movie. They had a late showing, and they had to evacuate the theater. And I was out with some friends, and we were coming down the mountain, and we saw the glow in the distance, and said, "Oh boy, there's something's on fire." And the closer we got as close as the Moose Club, and just stayed there for a little while. We didn't stay for the whole night, but It was 20 below that evening, and loss of life, and tragic events. But it's coming back to life, and we've lived long enough to see it. So that's a good thing, and I really do believe we have our challenges in the city of Rutland, as most communities do. But this is a real positive, and we can build on that, I believe.
I was also there that night. I was at the time working at WHWB, which doesn't exist anymore. I went off the air. And I was otherwise engaged. Let's just say that. I was on a date, and I could hear the horn, the fire horn going off, and I knew it was a general alarm. And then, as you say, I looked up, and I knew it was downtown. So I hustled over, and on Center Street at the time was The Movies, and then on West Street was Movie Land, and then we had the Plaza Cinema. And right next to The Movies, in this little adjoining room, was Hewitt Jewelers, and it was a really small store, and they let me go in and use the phone, and I put the radio station back on the air because we used to go off at sunset, and started reporting it. And I was there when I saw people literally jumping out of windows to the firemen below. Yeah. I think there were 5 people that perished in it, and I'll never forget that night. As you say, it was brutally cold. And it seemed to take forever to put the fire out, but it finally did go out. And then the next day, it looked like a bomb had hit it. And ever since then, for 50 years, that was 73, I think, it's just been, what we affectionately know as the pit.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So, that was quite a night.
The firemen were very brave that night.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no question.
To battle something like that and in those conditions. And thank goodness there was a firewall there at Wilson Sports, where the Hop and Moose is now. That stopped it from. A couple of the firemen told me it would have taken out the whole block if that had been there. So, yep.
We're talking to the Rutland president of the Board of Aldermen, Dave Allaire. Sometimes when the phrases just roll off the tongue, you don't even realize what you're saying. And we're here on Catamount Community Connection. We need to take our first break, and we will be back with more with Dave Allaire in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. I'm Brian Collamore, your weekly host for the program, and we're talking today with the president of the Rutland Board of Aldermen, Dave Allaire, former mayor of the city. Our program brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846, and the 179th Fair seems like a long way away, but it isn't really. August 12th through the 16th. I don't know who's going to be coming to perform. I know I've made you promises, folks, that we're going to be talking to Robert Congdon, the president of the fair, and I am going to keep that promise for you. I'm going to wait a little bit longer till maybe they've signed a contract with whoever it is that's coming, and we'll get to know maybe some of the new acts that are coming. I will tell you that the Racing Pigs will be back. He's already told me that, so I know that's true, and looking forward to that show. And again, they're in the middle of a mess with that 3-acre rule. We're trying our best to help the fair out with some legislation, and hopefully by the time you hear this, some of what we did will have become law, as they say. There was an event a few weeks ago, back in early May, with the trades. So I don't know who came up with the idea. I want to give Cedar a ton of credit. Lyle Jepson and his crew at the Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland region, because they were really the ones that brought it to my attention. And we had him on more than once to talk about it. And 2,000 kids, students, showed up at Castleton University. Over 80 vendors were there, some of them with big, huge equipment that the kids were able to climb up on. And I don't want to say they started them up and drove them around or anything, but they at least got a sense of what it is to be, in a bulldozer and that kind of thing. And then there were other kinds of skills that were there. And I even talked to the governor about it the day that he came back, and he was absolutely impressed. He said he figured there might be a couple hundred kids that would have come down to it. And again, 2,000 students. So they came from as far away as the Northeast Kingdom, which is an all-day trip for them. And it was called Bring Back the Trades. And it focused on, for maybe too long a time in high school, or even before you're in high school, it sort of gets assumed that you're going to go to the next higher level of institution. And unfortunately, for a lot of kids, that's not really an option. They just don't do well in class. For one reason or another, they'd rather do something physical. So this was a perfect way to show them. And again, because there's so few skilled tradespeople right now, they can command a pretty good salary. And whether they're plumbers, electricians, carpenters, hospital workers, they have OR techs and all that kind of stuff going on. It was a great event. And I just wanted to, again, thank FW Webb was the sponsor of that event. And I know from talking to Crispin White a couple of weeks ago now, they're already planning. This is going to be an annual event. And whether they outgrew Castleton already or not, I don't know. They had it in the pavilion. And luckily, I think had a day where it was one of the few days in May it didn't rain. So they were able to be outside and just blown away with the response. So it was all in all a great day. And my hat's off to him. I'm sure you heard good reports about it too.
So I did. I was unable to attend. I was working, but we had Lyle actually into the Board of Aldermen meeting. I think it was the night before the event, and he briefed us about what was he was hoping was going to happen. And obviously, like you say, the numbers just was astounding. People coming from all over the state. It just shows the need that's out there. And so many kids have kind of been left aside over these last few years because they were pushed for whatever reason to go to a four-year college and get a degree, and a degree a lot of them will never use. There is a need out there, and you're right, they can command a high salary and make a good living doing a lot of these different trades that for a long time people just didn't want to, but now they do, and that's a great sign. If you ever tried to find a plumber on the fly, they're all swamped. They just you can't get one. So this is good, and my hat's off to the people that put that together, and I think they have outgrown it from what I've heard too. They are looking at it at possibly another venue. I don't know where exactly, but there are other places you can have that. Hopefully it'll be close to the Rutland region, and because I think we host those types of things very well down here.
Maybe the fairgrounds. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. You got a track that would be good for that kind of equipment sort of demonstration, and you certainly have plenty of buildings and plenty of room. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know how viable that might be, but yeah. And when you consider, Dave, and we're talking with Dave Allaire, that the Killington project hasn't even begun yet. And that literally is going to be a 25-year project to get that village center done. If you started right now in a trade school, and there are scholarships, by the way, that came out of that whole Bring Back the Trades event. And so you start, and whatever you want, let's say you want to become an electrician. So you go to school to learn how to, become one. When you get out, you're not just guaranteed a job, you're guaranteed a career. 25 years. And so you might even form a company if you were really looking ahead and know that for 25 years you can run a company that's going to be involved with that. So, and I'm sure there'll be a need downtown for that as well. The downtown project is a little bit probably quicker in terms of being able to completion, but both of those events together just show you the need for our skilled people. And I know the hospital's always looking for people, so it's pretty cool that we were there when it started. So we'll see what happens next year. The other thing that by the time you hear this, I think the governor will have already signed it. I can tell you that the Rutland Charter, and I'm trying to think of the four, I think there were 4 things that were voted on. It did pass the House and then the Senate, and we sent it to the governor. It's over a week now, and he usually takes about 5 or 6 days. If he's not going to veto something, he'll just sign it. So by the time you folks hear this show, it could well be true that is now law, and it was effective on passage. So we don't have to wait till July 1st. One of them had to do with the makeup of the Board of Commissioners of the Regional Planning Commission, I think. Was it the Regional Planning? I think it was. So before that, you had to be a resident of the city of Rutland in order to be on that board. Now you have to just own property, one person. The other 5, I think, have to be still residents. But the other one just has to own property in the city and then could come in and help out there. Then there were various municipal fines that used to be set at a certain level. Now it just goes in concert with Title 24. So if the state says you can charge, I don't know what the amounts were, let's just say it's $100 for whatever violation of a civil code is, you don't have to go back to do a charter every year to change it. It's automatic. And then there were provisions that would allow the city to put out to bid certain projects. There was a threshold, I want to say it was $2,500. Now I think it goes to, I know what it is, it goes to the financial committee, which is the mayor, the president of the board, and the city treasurer, and they can decide, apart from any statute, how much the bond could be or however they want to spend. And it was interesting. I learned a lot about how much fire trucks cost and how much police cruisers cost. And, if you ask the average Joe or Jane on the street, what do you think it costs to buy a brand new fire truck? They might say, it must be a few $1,000s. Well, guess what? It's over $1 million. And the cruisers that, if they're all, and I'm talking when they're properly equipped, so the whole package with the lights and the siren and everything, used to be about 25 or 30 grand. They're now over $100,000. So it was just a needed adjustment, I think. But all of that passed, and hopefully it'll make things easier for the city.
Yeah, I believe so. Most of those were non-controversial. They were just things that needed upgrading with the passage of time. I think we bought a new fire truck somewhere in my tenure, and the numbers were astounding. Matter of fact, I couldn't believe it. I said, "Let's go out and do some more shopping." And no matter where you went, it was all the same thing. They came in about the same price. And you want your fire department, your police department to have the newest and best equipment available, for their safety and for the safety of the public. So those are the kind of expenditures that I had no problem taking on. Those were much needed. We were very thankful for the legislature for getting those through, and I know the governor will sign them. It'll just and pass them through. So
I know the police chief Brian Collamore, who had a little scrap there a few weeks back, but he's okay. He was very hopeful that they would be able to put that line item in the budget. I don't know how old the cruisers are that are moving around town, but he seemed to be very interested in being able to at least investigate whether they could buy a new one or maybe more than one. And then I imagine there's a seniority sort of list of people that are going to get the new car, which is always fun to watch too. Who's going to be able to have the first ride in it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So we have a schedule worked out for the new vehicles, and the ones they're using now are relatively new, all of them. But they take a lot of wear and tear. They're on 24 hours a day, stopping and starting, all sorts of weather. So they don't last as long as your personal vehicle, say. You could keep for years and years and years. These things wear out. But we do pass them down and let other departments use them, so they're not just thrown out. We do get the best bang for our buck on them, but the initial cost is right up there.
Yeah. It's funny that there aren't. I mean, if in a perfect world, if you could see that the landscape for making fire trucks, for instance, and there's only, and I don't know how many there are, let's say there's a dozen companies around the country that make them, and maybe that's more than there are, that someone hasn't figured out if they just were a little bit less expensive than the other 10 or 12, they could really do well, because, competition is good for everybody. But you're right. It seems as though there may be calls made from one CEO to another that says, hey, here's what I'm asking this month. Make sure you're with me on it. So it's just interesting. And but that's business, I guess. So
yeah.
Okay, so there's the charter. There's our tips, the Bring Back the Trades. And we talked a little bit about the summer events. We're talking with Dave Allaire, the president of the Rutland Board of Aldermen. And maybe you know, because when I started the show, I said Burlington uses city council, and maybe I think there's others in the state that do as well. Maybe Burlington's the only one. But we're Board of Aldermen, and I don't know what the difference is and how that ever came about.
Yeah.
They have a larger group, I think. We have 11, right?
We have 11, yeah.
And I want to say theirs is more like 15 or 16, but I could be off. And maybe it's because there's more people up there. They feel they need more representation from different. And I think they still do it by wards. I don't know.
Yeah, they do it by wards, and they are a little bit larger. I believe they might be 13.
Okay.
A friend of mine that I served in the legislature with, Kurt Wright.
Oh, yeah.
Who's just retiring from being a radio show host on WVMT. He would keep me up to date on the goings-on because he was a city councilor up there for a number of years, too. I think it has something to do with the mayor being a voting member of the council,
okay,
rather than having him, be separate like we are. And when we put our charter together way back in the 1890s, they dubbed the Board of Aldermen, I believe, at that time. I don't think we were ever a city council, but it's a fairly minor difference. But Burlington and Rutland are still the only two communities in Vermont where the mayor is actually the CEO of the city, where he runs the day-to-day operations. In all the other communities, there are several other cities, there are managers. They're city managers. Okay. And the mayor is more, just does the cutting of the ribbons and that sort of thing.
Yeah, interesting. Well, City Council, Board of Aldermen, whatever it is, you're at the head of that, so congratulations there. I know we have a new committee, or a new, it's, I guess, board person. We're getting all caught up with this gender updating thing. Somebody mentioned that, by the way, on the committee when we were taking testimony on the charter. Why do you people down there call it Board of Aldermen? It should be Board of Alderpersons or Alder people or something. I said, I don't know. It's just the way it is. Don't get all upset. It's fine the way it is. Okay. It's not a big deal, but they were very interested to see whether we would put it in the charter that from now on it was going to be. And I said, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not changing the name of it. Anyway, Carrie Savage is back on the board after away for a bit, and certainly want to welcome her in. I did see her the other day, and certainly I should mention this too. If there are other Board of Alder people that want to come on this show, please get a hold of me, and we'll arrange for 2 or 3 of you to come on at a time and talk about what you see as, your kind of mission being on the board, and what you'd like to see the city accomplish and all that kind of stuff. I throw that out as an invitation because we have the mayor on probably every 5 or 6 weeks as sort of a check-in, see what's going on. The police chief drops in on a regular basis as well. Devin Neary from the Planning Commission. So I try to make sure I get sort of all the city leaders in one spot here to keep people updated, because, Rutland is sort of the hemisphere or the center of things in the county, and so it is important. And so with that, anybody that's on a select board in any of the neighboring communities that want to come in and talk about why Community X is important, and you never talk about that, I'd be perfectly willing and welcome to have you come on as well. But anyway, welcome back to Alderperson Carrie Savage. And I know the board is pretty well split now in terms of political affiliation. Oftentimes that's not as important on the the Board of Aldermen level as it is certainly in the General Assembly. But and you've been in both, David, so you can speak to both. We made a point this year of from the election results in November, both the Senate and the House have gotten a little bit more balanced, is the way I like to look at it, with a few more Republicans on both of those chambers. So, but it's really not. I mean, on occasion there'll be an issue that maybe gets divided down party lines, but for the most part, I think you guys just work together pretty well.
Yeah, I think we're so close to the folks, and when you have 11 members like that who know each other so well, you really do have to develop that level of trust with each other, and so I tried to make a point of in my initial message when I got sworn in and took was elected president, just to say, look, I'm here for the next year. I'm going to here for the next 2 years, but board president for 1 year. And, I want to extend my hand and work with the mayor and do whatever he thinks is, moving the city forward. If I agree, could respectfully disagree, but, in the end of the day, we all want what's best for the city of Rutland. And I think that's true with the members of the board. Yeah, it's split. And, I was talking with somebody the other day about that. And, even years ago, there was always different divergent ideas, young versus old, left versus right. There was always different viewpoints and different ways to get to a decision. But, that's actually good. Because you don't want to have it swayed one way or the other. Because in the end, I don't think that's really all that. Even if they were all Republicans, I don't think that would be great. You have to have that divergent group. So, and that's what we have. And we've got a good group. And I'm very pleased with the way things have gone so far as that goes. We've had some other outside influences and some decisions that have been made by folks that have kind of created a little bit of upheaval in the city, but we're working through that, and we're going to move the city forward.
I'm sure that you could say with great certainty, because again, you were on the House of Representatives for 2 terms, 3, so 6 years.
Yep,
and it has a tendency there to be much more partisan, and I agree with you. If the Republicans have the supermajority, I think things would be just as bad as when the Democrats had it. The progressives haven't had a supermajority yet. They're still very much in the minority, but often will caucus with the Democrat Party. So it is better. And Senator Flory years ago and Senator Mullen, those were the 2 senators when I came in 2014, always used to say the best law, the best statutes, the best legislation is created when you have as close to a 50-50 split as you can get, because you would be surprised, just as you're getting ready to vote a bill out, someone from the, quote, other party might say, hey, you know what? Here's something we haven't thought about yet. And they'd throw something out and you go, wow, they're right. And I hadn't thought about that. So then you chew it up a little bit more and maybe change a provision or 2 in a bill. And then literally what came out at the end, they kid about making sausage, and that's what we do up there. But what comes out at the other end is much better than it would have been if one party just sort of ramrodded it through without thinking. And generally when that happens, in a couple of years, you have to go back and fix it. So I agree with you, and it's nice to know that at least on the city level, the Board of Aldermen is cooperating with each other and hopefully getting things done. I do see a lot of them around, many of whom I've known for a long time. And you're right, there's sort of an old and a young faction, if you will, now. That's what happens when you hang around the block for 50 years. You get old. I don't know how else to do it. I mean, either that or wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah. No, and I think it all works for a positive. There is a lot of things in the hopper. We talked about the TIF earlier, and has a lot of implications outside of just the downtown hotel. There are some other properties around the city that need some redevelopment, and the only way it looks like they're going to be done is through that TIF process, because private developers up to this point just haven't touched a lot of these things, and there's a reason, because it's just not economically viable.
Yep.
So.
And we have still some regulatory reform to enact. In my view, we haven't done enough to make Act 250 a little bit more easy to navigate. It's got to be timely, it's got to be cost effective, and so far there have been a few projects I can speak directly about that in the end the developer threw his hands up and said, you know what, I'm just going to go across to either New Hampshire or even New York, of all places, because I can get it done over there much more easily, and that's what happened. So I think that we do still need to tinker around with Act 250 a little bit more. Obviously, it's a law that was put into effect, about the same time the Berwick burned. I'm trying to think, it was about 70 or 71, I think. Dean Davis was governor, as I recall, at the time. And it served us well, but it's gotten so long and so complicated and so dense that I think it would be good if we just kind of went through, how you comb a dog's hair out and sort of all that stuff falls out. That's what I think we need to do with Act 250. The agenda for it was right. We had ski areas, especially down south, that weren't doing the right thing. They were literally just throwing their waste out the window, and we needed it. And I'm not talking about Killington, but further south. And so it was a good idea at the time, but it's become almost so, I don't know how to say it, so top heavy that you can't navigate it through without a lot of cost and a lot of time. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be more easy to get through it. But anyway, that's just my view, and I'm sure there are those listening that don't agree with that, and they think Act 250 is great, and that's okay. I'm not asking for it to be repealed. I just think we should continue to work on it and make it a little bit more workable, especially for the developers who, for the most part, do the right thing. They try to get their projects in on time and at a cost that still can make a profit, but still benefit everybody. So there we go there. Speaking of that, are there any other things that are coming up legislatively that, and for the most part, this session is finished. I mentioned we will be going back. June 16th and 17th, by the way, are the two dates for the veto session. But as I learned the hard way one year, when you have a veto session, it isn't just the vetoes that have to be taken up. Everything else can be opened up again, too. You could take up a bill that was still on the wall if you want, and so it's all fair game. And there may be other things that we didn't get to that people will feel the need to try to get to fruition. But I don't know from the city's point of view if there's other things that we could be doing that we're not doing, or if we're doing that you wish we weren't doing. I guess it could go either way, right?
Well, I mentioned earlier today to you the Ed bill a little bit, and not that I want to get into the weeds about that because I don't know enough about the details. But you mentioned that there's currently, $50 million more in spending. That's not something that I would be thrilled, or any of my constituents would be thrilled to hear about. We spend an awful lot on educating our kids here in Vermont with a declining enrollment. My wife's a school teacher. She's been a school teacher in Vermont for 45 years in the same district. And she tells me just even in that district, the waste is incredible. So it does need reform, needs restructuring. Thank goodness we have a great school system here in the city and where my wife works too. But I think overall the outcomes are not what we really want them to be, which is to have our kids have a higher level of proficiency in reading or math or whatever it is, and that's not there. So I'm hoping that the legislators and the governor will come together and put something out for the community that'll benefit us all. So that's a bigger picture thing than just the city of Rutland. We're always looking at trying to make some of the bail laws a little stiffer. Stop the revolving door. I know there was some work done on that last year, and probably was talked about the judiciary up there again this year. But you still, I think, we see a lot of the same folks over and over and over and over again, whether it's substance abuse issues or whatever the reason, that we can't seem to, put them where they need to go to eradicate that behavior. And that wears down your police force. It makes it tougher to recruit new police officers, although we've had some success in doing that lately. But it's just tough for the community. And I think my constituents would like to see a little bit more work done in that area. Yeah.
We're talking to Dave Allaire, who is the president of the Rutland Board of Aldermen. Just one quick thing before we take our second break. In terms of the education piece, nothing will change next year, next fiscal year, in terms of the new whatever it is that we vote into law. Most of what we've been talking about won't take effect till 27, and some of the provisions even in 28. So FY26, which begins, literally in a couple of weeks, we will face the same situation we did this past year, but we've used, and I say we, the governor had decided in his budget to spend $77 million of one-time money, and the Ed Fund had a $40 million surplus. So you add those two together and you come up with $110 million, and we literally bought down the property tax rate for the coming fiscal year. So what would have probably been about 6 or 7% increases for the average. Now, that doesn't mean your community is going to be in that category, but on an average, it would have been between 6 and 7%. It'll be down to about 1%. So most people will see a very small increase in their property taxes when they get them. I think the bills come out, I don't know when I get mine, later in the fall, I guess. There's a letter that's sent out first that will kind of give you a heads up. But again, that's one-time money. So we've used it over and over and over again to buy down the rate. But that rate itself has gone up about 33% over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's not sustainable. And as Dave Allaire just pointed out, if it was a business model, and I've used this analogy before, and forgive me for those that have heard it before, and I realize our educational system is not a business model, nor probably should it be, but you have fewer kids by about 40,000. So we had 110,000 kids at one time. We're down to about 82. And the projection is from the Agency of Education, we'll be down in the 70,000 kids by 2030. So fewer kids cost more money every year somehow. And the results, the product that we're getting, it's not terrible. It's not the worst. It's not the best. It's right about in the middle of the pack. So, I don't think there'd be too many businesses that would keep customers for too long if they kept charging them more money for a product that is, not that bad, but not that good kind of thing. And I'm not blaming teachers, and I'm trying not to make this sound negative. I think we just need to take an honest look at it and say, wow, we got an issue that we got to deal with here. And, most of it has to do with spending. You can argue that the administrative costs on the district level are probably a little high. And there are buildings that aren't being used. There are classrooms that aren't being used. You can't continue to graduate 14 or 15 kids from a high school and keep that model unless you're willing to pay 10 or 15% more in taxes each year. So there'll be something that comes up. But next year, a little breathing room, we should be okay. And many people won't see any increase, and some will see just a little bit of one for fiscal year 26. So with that said, let's take our second break here on Catamount Community Connection. Again, we're talking with Dave Allaire, who's president of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, and we'll be back in just a minute. We're back on Catamount Community Connection, and this week happy to be with Dave Allaire, who is president of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen and former mayor, of course. And it's been a pleasure talking to him. Don't forget the Rutland County Agricultural Society bringing you the Vermont State Fair for the 179th year. August 12th through the 16th are the dates this year, and we will have Robert Congdon on, I promise you, before much too longer. So we talked a little bit about some of the things coming up, summer events, the TIF, the Rutland Charter, the Board of Aldermen, and the more balanced it is, I think both Dave and I feel that way, the better off you are. We also have, and we're maybe focusing a little bit on the downtown, but that's where kind of like all the action is right now, Walmart, which has been there for many years. Many of us can remember W.T. Grant's there at one time, and Firestone at the other end of it. All of that, of course, is gone, but Walmart's been there for a good number of years and have decided to relocate, and there'll be what they call a superstore coming in what is now the Diamond Run Mall. I don't think all of that is going to be taken down, but I think some of the buildings are, from what I hear, right?
Yeah, that's correct. From what my understanding is, about 3/4 of the property up there will be demolished, and there'll be I think where Kmart will remain standing. But anyway, they are now looking to get their Act 250 permit for the demolition, which in turn means that the city needs to think very hard and work with the owners of the shopping plaza about what's going to happen when Walmart indeed does leave. It's going to be probably 4 years down the road by the time that's all said and done, between Act 250 and building the new property and moving the store. My understanding is when they are moving, it's going to be kind of phased. So it isn't just going to be shut down all at once and then moved up there. It's going to take some time. That's my understanding. But, we just enacted here in the last couple of years, again, something that happened right at the end of my tenure as mayor, was a 1% local option tax here in the city. And that's generated a $1.6 million, which has really benefited the city a great deal. Used it for pension, used it for capital improvement, kind of stabilized our tax rate a little bit here locally, but that's a huge hole to fill if Walmart were to leave and nothing would be in there to replace it. So it's my hope that the committee that the mayor has put together is looking to replace that with another retailer, someone that can come in there and generate enough foot traffic that's maybe not up to the point where Walmart's doing, because Walmart does just a terrific business down there. I mean, the people are going in and out of there all day long, 7 days a week. But will be enough to keep that fund at a level where it is. There has been some talk about housing, and I think there's a couple of ideas being thrown around. But that place was built for retail, and like you say, going way back, W.T. Grant's. I think Kmart at one point was down there, and now Walmart for actually up to I think close to 25 years. It was mid '90s when that whole renovation happened down there in Jeff Wenberg's tenure, and which was a great stroke of business at that time, and so that's what we're hoping. Like I said, the mayor has put together a committee. There's I believe 2 members of the Board of Aldermen on it. They meet fairly regularly. I try to get regular updates of what's going on with them. It's still a lot of it's up in the air, and of course a lot of it's going to depend on the owners of the plaza themselves, because it's their property. They can do with it as they so please, but I would imagine that they would want to see somewhere in the same thing that we want. That's a big footprint there, an opportunity for a retailer to come in. And I think the Rutland market would be ripe for somebody to come in now. With the dearth, there's not that many other retailers for competition. So I'm hoping that, a lot of them are taking a look at us, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. As a resident of Rutland Town, of course, I'm happy because the grand list of Rutland Town will increase when the superstore goes over there, because that is in Rutland Town, and it will reduce, obviously, maybe, hopefully, momentarily, the grand list for the city, and depending on what they choose to put in there. And I did hear about potential partial housing there and partial retail, maybe 2 or 3 floors. I'm not sure how that would work with the Act 250, because as soon as you change the footprint, you got to go through a much more complicated procedure. But I think people will be watching that carefully. Of course, that was the train depot long before I was here, but I'm sure you were here.
I have some photos of the old rail station down there and the railroad tracks, and it's amazing. There was about 8 or 10 across at the time, and then the old roundhouse. Yeah. And boy, there was a lot of train activity in those days. I mean, that's how people got around. Not everybody had a car, and we were the railroad capital of the state at the time.
I remember hearing Peter Markowski bought his first bulldozer somewhere. I think it happened around 60, and there's a picture of him beginning to demolish all of that and clearing it out for what would become the Rutland Shopping Plaza. And, of course, his company has grown by leaps and bounds since. But that's the story I got anyway. And, I wasn't here. But it's fun to look back on those days. And we still have the train service back. And that will continue to be part of the downtown for sure. I think it's a 5-car, I used to call them Budliners. I don't know if they still do that anymore. But Amtrak goes back and forth every day and brings people here and takes people away. So that's still going on. And, we'll see what happens for our new downtown. And there's always people that are moving in and some people closing shop and new people coming. So that's the way of the world. And it's going to be interesting in the next, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years to see the transformation downtown, both of the Paramount and the hotel, and now what will be something where Walmart is now. And there you go. Well, David, we've reached the end of the show, and I want to thank you very much. If I don't find somebody in the interim, we will probably run this for a couple of weeks. So those of you listening, June 1st and then potentially June 8th are the dates that you'll be hearing this. And I tried, and David has tried too, that what we talk about coming to fruition this week, it's hard to sort of do a show and then listen to it 2 weeks later and go, well, yeah, that was what it looked like then, but things didn't turn out that way. Anyway, hopefully people still enjoy listening, and it's always a pleasure to see you, sir, and we will definitely have you come back at some point, and thanks very much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your listeners, and wish you well up there in the legislature, and hopefully by the time this airs, you will be back home.
All right. Thank you, Dave. And we will look for all of you next week here on Catamount Community Connection.